Hey everybody, it's Jeremy, and welcome to a new episode of Sipping with Jeremy. And today we're going to be celebrating 150 years of distilling history with the Erickson-Sauza family, who y'all might know better as Fortaleza. So Tequila Fortaleza was started in 2005 by Guillermo Erickson-Sauza, but his family has history dating back to 1873 when it comes to making tequila. His great-great-grandfather, Don Zenobio, opened his distillery in 1873. He was one of the first to export mezcal de tequila to the United States. He also shortened the name to just tequila. He was also a big fan of using steam to cook his agave instead of the earthen smoke pits, which were known for at the time. And he was also a big fan of using blue agave for his tequila. And then some of these things I just mentioned, blue Weber agave or blue agave, using steam to cook your agave. These are all things that are now standard in tequila. These are things the Sauza family were doing from the start. Now, Guillermo's great-grandfather, Don Helado, helped make tequila the official drink of Mexico. Guillermo's grandfather, Francisco Javier, is known for leading a group of tequila producers to apply for the application of origin for tequila, which later would become known as NAM, which is the organizational group that helps regulate tequila now. Francisco Javier also bought a hacienda in the town of Tequila, where he had a small distillery that he called La Fortaleza. In 1976, Don Javier sold the family business, but he did keep the hacienda and the agave fields that the family owned. Now, Guillermo growing up thought that he was going to be going around the world selling his family's tequila brand. He had no idea that he was going to be starting his own brand. So in 1999, he started renovating the distillery that was on the family hacienda. And in 2005, he officially launched Tequila Fortaleza. And this is interesting. So as I mentioned, this is Guillermo Erickson-Sauza. The family brand that was sold off in 1976 by Don Javier was Sauza Tequila. So that brand that we very much know for college shots and that kind of idea, that was the family brand of Guillermo until his grandfather sold it off in 1976. And this is important because you can see a distinction. This is a really fun thing. If you ever are in Mexico and you're looking for Tequila Fortaleza, you're looking for the wrong thing. Look for Tequila Los Abuelos, which is tequila of the grandfathers, which is Guillermo's nod of a cap to his former generations of tequila producers. But because of legal issues, they can't call it Tequila Los Abuelos in the United States, so it is Tequila Fortaleza here. And that is a nod, again, to his grandfather Javier for the distillery that is on the hacienda, the family's hacienda. So I don't have every single expression from Fortaleza that is available right now, but I do have some really cool ones that I wanted to just share with you all. So Fortaleza typically makes 4, I would say, core SKUs for them. They have their Blanco, their Still Strength Blanco, their Reposado, and their Añejo. And then they do come out with a yearly release, which they call a Winter Blend. And recently I was able to pick up a bottle of a special release of a Blanco they did, which was their batch 150. And Blanco 150 is in reference to the 150th batch of tequila made by Tequila Fortaleza, not in common with the 150th anniversary of the Erickson-Sauza family, though it is funny that they both came out in the same year. So today we are going to be trying that 150th Blanco, the Still Strength Blanco, the Reposado, and the 2022 Winter Blend Reposado. Let's go ahead and start with the straight Blanco 150th. So I'd say my first real encounter with Fortaleza would have been probably about 2010 or so. I wasn't the spirits buyer at the wine country yet at that time, but I was a big fan of tequila, and our spirits buyer at the time, Ronnie Grant, just couldn't get over this brand. He was, head over heels. He's like, this stuff is fantastic. So he, knowing that I was a fan of tequila, when I would come back home for college, he would try me on a bunch of different stuff. And this was one he was like, you got to try this. This is amazing. This is going to be, one of the best brands out there. And he's right. Looking now in 2023, the brand is on fire, and it is cool to see I actually got to go down to the town of Tequila. I got to go on a trip put on by Fortaleza, where we got to see some other brands, but we really got to focus on Fortaleza and Guillermo and his son Billy. And it's Guillermo and Billy who are running everything now, and it's just really cool to see this family story survive 150 years and keep going strong. Billy has 2 daughters now, and Guillermo and Billy are the 4th and 5th generation of the Sauza family line of distilling. But from what it looks like, at least one of the girls is going to get into it when they're old enough too. So it's really cool just to see this family line keep so strong, and just to see the the blow up that they've had over the last 2 years. I remember I sent Billy a message, I think it was either earlier this year or at the end of last year, when they really started just seeing this huge phenomenon of Fortaleza just being taken off the shelf. Like I said, it's been around in our store since at least 2010, and it's been a brand that people have always enjoyed, but it hasn't had the hype that it has now, where basically we get it in and it sells out within 2 or 3 days. It doesn't matter which one it is, people will buy it. And it's great for them. It's great that they're getting this love from everybody, because it's a fantastic brand and they are delicious. So I just wanted to say that's really cool that Fortaleza is getting the love it's getting now. And for people out there who are looking for it, it is going to be hard to find right now for sure. But I know that they are working at it hard down there in Tequila. Billy has mentioned that they are trying to make a new distillery, but they still got to build that distillery, and then they still have to go on and make tequila. So it's going to be a while where Fortaleza is going to be harder to find. But if you are able to find some, and you're not getting charged an arm and a leg by some individuals who are taking advantage of this increase in popularity, you're going to find yourself some dang good tequila. And we're going to start with this 150 Blanco. This is the celebratory batch of the 150th run of tequila made by Fortaleza. And it's really cool. For Fortaleza, they don't do anything super fancy with their specialty bottles, but they do give you a tag that gives you information. So on this tag, they say, for the 150th bottling run, since Guillermo fired up our boilers almost 20 years ago, for the first time, we decided to ferment the cooked and crushed agave fibers in open-topped wooden vats. So by adding those fibers, you're going to get a different texture than what you typically would for their further Blanco tequila. Let's try it out and see what it's like. So as I said a little earlier, I was able to go down to the Fortaleza distillery, and one of the things they allowed us to do when we were down there was they gave us a piece of the cooked agave and just gave it to us to try, just to eat it. And there was this really nice sweetness there that gave me like notes of caramel, a little cocoa. And sometimes when people say that they have sweetness in their tequilas, if they're not adding anything, if it is an additive-free brand like Fortaleza is, that sweetness comes from that cooked agave flavor. And because they're using the fibers with this Blanco during the fermentation, I really get that like caramelization, that little bit of cocoa on this. There's just some really fresh agave flavors too. That white pepper is there, that little bit of vegetal note as well. But that additional sweetness from that adding of the fibers during fermentation really gives you a roundness and a little bit more richer kind of profile than you get for your typical Fortaleza Blanco. Now let's go ahead and kick it up a little notch, going to the Still Strength Blanco. So Fortaleza's Still Strength is exactly what it sounds like. It's their Blanco tequila that just comes off the still, isn't cut with water. So this stands at 46 proof instead of your traditional 40 proof. And Guillermo created the Still Strength in honor of his great-great-grandfather Don Zenobio, because this was the proof that he put his tequila at in bottle. If you are ever lucky enough to get down to the Fortaleza distillery, one thing you'll notice is at the hacienda, close to where their agave fields are, there's a big old volcano. That salty kind of volcanic soil are noticeable in this tequila. So you do get some nice fruit. There's a little bit of a stone fruit characteristic here, but then you get this really nice saltiness that leads into a little bit more of that white pepper. It's actually surprisingly soft for 46% alcohol. It's not like that's a super high proof on a spirit, but for when you compare it to, their standard Blanco, which is super smooth, you're jumping up 6% here in alcohol, and it's still very smooth. And that's because of that nice fruitiness, and again, that nice saltiness from the volcanic soil that just gives you this little bit of freshness on the palate with their nice flavor of white pepper and agave notes. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Reposado. So this is the flagship Reposado in my opinion. Anytime I taste a tequila Reposado, this is the one I compare it to. I know it's unfair to a lot of brands, but this is my favorite Reposado out there. Anytime, especially when I'm tasting an additive-free tequila, if they have Reposado, I compare it to this and see what it's like. I have some that are, to me, on the same tier as the Fortaleza. Never had any that are better to me, though. But let me give you some notes on this one we have right in front of us. So first thing you get off the bat is some really nice richness. There's a little bit of caramel. I would say it's some more light brown sugar flavors too. A little bit of a vanilla bean kind of characteristic you can definitely get from the oak. In the batch 150, I noticed I mentioned there's a little bit more of a caramelized kind of cocoa flavor there. You're getting some of that caramelization here too, but you're getting a really nice fruitiness too. In the Still Strength, I mentioned some stone fruit. You're getting a little bit more of that richer kind of stone fruit here, a little bit more like it's been dipped in that caramel. So just this really nice kind of richness. Still some softer white pepper flavor on the back end. You are still getting some of that agave flavor, but definitely this really nice richness, but still really fresh on the back end. And that's the real trick in Reposados, in my opinion, especially again in the additive-free world. You're getting the flavors from the oak. Sometimes those oak barrels can take a little too much of the agave away, but in this Reposado, you're getting a really nice balance of some really nice sweeter kind of flavors up front, but then some bolder agave flavor on the back end too. Let's go ahead and try a specialty one, the Reposado Winter Blend 2022. So Winter Blend is a newer project from Fortaleza. 2022, I believe, was the second variation of it. I could be wrong. They could be on their third, but 2022 is the second one that I have had myself. But what they do is they take different Reposados that were aged in different barrels and blend them together. So these Reposados for this blend of 2022 were aged in ex-American oak barrels, which you can imagine are bourbon barrels, Oloroso barrels, which is a sweeter kind of sherry. You see a lot of scotches that are aged in Oloroso barrels. And then also Tokai barrels, which is a Hungarian sweet wine. You've heard of Royal Tokai possibly, so sweeter wine. So all three of these barrels, bourbon barrels, Oloroso barrels, Tokai barrels, are all sweeter spirits, sweeter libations that are then being aged with their Blanco tequila that they put in at Still Strength, so that 46%. They put that into the barrel and then age that. And it becomes Reposado, then they blend it all together, and that's how you get the Winter Blend. That just has a really fun combination of flavors, honestly. So from those barrels that I mentioned, the bourbon barrels, the Tokai barrels, the Oloroso barrels, you'd expect some sweetness, and it definitely has that up front. You get a lot of those caramel flavors. There's a little bit more of a toasted vanilla characteristic here, a little bit of butterscotch as well, but then you get this super vibrant white pepper there. There's a lot of oak spice too to balance out that white pepper, so you get a lot of savory flavors on the finish where you get this richness up front. It's a really fun contrast because it's super appealing on the palate up front because you get this richness and just like coats the palate and just gives you this really big, rich, full-bodied flavor. And then you get these really savory, bold characteristics on the back end that just balance out each other really nicely. So while there is a still sweeter characteristic overall, there is a savory profile to keep it balanced. And this is just one of the examples of what Fortaleza can do, in my opinion, that makes them really stand out, is have this elegance and this balance that is just really fun to find and really unique in what they do there at Fortaleza. And speaking of uniqueness, I haven't talked about these bottles at all. All the bottles used to be hand blown for Fortaleza. Some are now more factory made, but one thing that is still all hand done are these tops. So these tops are just little agaves. These are the peñas of the agave. So after you take off all the leaves, this is what you're left with. This is what gets cooked to make your tequila. And these are all hand done. I've seen the little area that they make these in. It is a very small spot. I think they fit about 12 people in there. And these individuals are working their butts off. And they have these there's carving. And it's awesome. I myself always like to buy a bottle of the Winter Blend I will drink it throughout the year. I make sure to save myself enough so I can compare whatever variation of it they're going to do the year after to the year before. So given on this, I'm probably going to have to stop drinking this bottle for a little bit, since we still have a little bit of time before the winter blend comes out. But it's just another phenomenal tequila made by Guillermo and Billy down there in Tequila, and I always just appreciate it. Alright everybody, that's going to wrap up this episode of Sipping with Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit about Tequila Fortaleza. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our page. Now this is usually where I would talk about how you can find the links below for articles or even, links to the products themselves on our website. But I'm going to be honest with you, finding Fortaleza is going to be really tricky right now. And that's because they are one of the hottest brands in tequila. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Besides the fact that they're delicious, they are also additive free, which is one of the bigger topics in tequila at the moment. But it's mainly because, anybody you talk to who's a tequila aficionado, Fortaleza is one of the brands that they truly appreciate. And that is because of what Guillermo has built down there and what his son Billy is helping him grow in tequila. And it's just because they are a great family-owned distillery that is super chill. And I'm going to use my soapbox here a little bit, and I apologize if this goes too long for some of y'all, but there are a lot of retailers out there right now who are taking advantage of the Fortaleza trend and spiking these prices. I've heard from multiple people who come to our store and appreciate, the fact that we have kept our prices the same as Fortaleza has. I've heard a lot of people talk about paying over $100 for a Blanco tequila from Fortaleza. And that shouldn't ever be the case because Fortaleza themselves hasn't increased their prices at all. There are some brands that would take advantage of this fact that their name is so praised at the moment, or that they are such a hot product, or, that the tequila trend is booming in that way, that they would increase their prices just because they can. Fortaleza hasn't done that. Even with their batch 150 for their Blanco, which, you might consider a specialty batch, which is a specialty batch from them, it wasn't any more expensive than their standard Blanco. The Reposado Winter Blend is the only one that you see a different price on compared to the core that has stayed the price throughout this expansion of people loving Fortaleza. And that is just a tribute to what Guillermo and what Billy are doing down there in tequila. They are making this stuff to honor their family. They're making this stuff because they love making sippable, delicious tequila, and they want to keep that going. They want people to be able to enjoy it. And looking forward to seeing what comes out of Fortaleza. Looking forward to seeing that 2023 winter blend soon too. But yeah, this is one of my favorite brands of tequila. I am biased because I did get to go down there. I did get to meet Guillermo. I did get to meet Billy. I went down there during close to Dios de los Muertos in 2016, and it was one of my favorite experiences. The few trips I've taken to Mexico since then have never compared, and that's not just because we were on a trip for tequila. It was just because seeing that region of Jalisco, seeing that region of Mexico was beautiful, and I always think about it. I always want to go back. Since I turned 21, which was 13 years ago now, Fortaleza has been one of my favorite brands, and that's also very spoiled, the fact that I've been able to drink Fortaleza for that long. But it's great to see this excitement behind this brand now, and I'm excited to have new people check these out. And it's really cool to see another family-owned business with such a history, 150 years of distilling history here, get the praise and love that they deserve. Happy 150th anniversary to the Erickson-Sauza family for making great tequila. We appreciate it. We want to keep drinking your stuff. And yeah, y'all take it easy. Drink well.